cooking. All right, so yeah, this is pretty cool. Our first Zoom meeting. I was a little concerned that people weren't going to find their way over here, but I went to free conferencing and there's nobody there. So those of us who are here are here. So yeah, Chris, I appreciate that your little tip on the diffusion and bringing that over, because I got to fix the lighting in here. So anyway, guys, this is what we're going to be doing from now on. It's a little more personable. Also, the other thing about this is we can share screens. So if at any time you've got issues or problems, you can actually share your screen with us and we can see what you're doing and be a lot more helpful. The other thing about this is these are going to be recorded audio and visual, so we'll be putting them up into YouTube. So there goes my phone already. So we're going to archive these in YouTube, so you'll always be able to go back and look at them and check them out. Now, also, I want you guys to know there's a lot of different ways to connect through Zoom. I know a lot of people had trouble with free conferencing because if they had something like a Magic Jack or some other kind of phone service, they wouldn't be able to dial into free conferencing. They were blocked. You shouldn't have that issue with Zoom. You can call in from a cell phone. You can use the Zoom app on any mobile device, any tablet, any cell phone, any mobile phone. Should be able to do that, any smartphone anyway. And you can also just drop the URL into any web browser. So from any computer, any device, any phone, you should be able to get in and participate without any phone charges. I know another thing, we've got people in other countries, and that was kind of keeping them back. They'd have to wait for the recordings because they didn't want to do the long distance call and have that expense. So this is going to kind of get us over that. This and it's a lot more personable. We can see each other. We can share screens, like I said, and I think this will be a lot more beneficial for everybody. I hope more people participate as the beginning of the year starts in here. I know the holidays were tough, and it always is. So that's acceptable. And hey, Gregory, I'll unmute you here. Go ahead.
All right, can you hear me?
Yeah, you're clear.
Okay, this is super. Wow. Sorry to be in a bit of a rush. I have to leave at 11:30 because my doggy's in the hospital and I have to go pick her up at 12.
Oh, okay.
Fate has happened. I have been appointed to talk at City Club in 2 weeks. And my subject matter, of course, is options. And I'm then asked to, what's my title for my card? Here's a card that will be made up for me. It's going to be just like that.
Okay, cool.
Okay, so the first step is title. I at the committee I just threw out the word. I mean, I was caught surprisingly. I was not on the original schedule, and then when I looked up the agenda at the meeting, it was like, Gregory, you're scheduled for 3rd of January. Okay, fine. I'm not gonna back out and chicken. So. The title I have is Mystifying Options, how options make money in the market. I'm really confused about, not confused, I'm trying to like hone it down so it can be something that'll fit on the card and be attractive for attraction. So where I need is just, I need the sexy title.
Got it. Okay. So let me give you some of the mistakes that you had in what you just said. So when you're talking about what options can do, you're not tying it to them. You know, you're basically putting it out there as, yeah, there's this thing out there that can do this thing, but there's no connection to them. And whenever you're creating a big idea, the big idea should be compelling and want them to grab a hold of it because they want it. So that's going to be your biggest thing, is connecting it to what can this do for them. if you go back to kind of Frank Kern's model, he simplifies everything down to the 3 steps of here's what I've got, here's what it will do for you, and here's what I want you to do next to get it. And if you think of things in that way, like demystifying things, that's kind of one of those things of, okay, who cares? Unless that's something that you found from your market research about people that are in your market, then I would kind of steer clear of that kind of stuff. If you're going to do a question type of title, then it would be, what can this do for you? You might make some kind of a statement, if you want more income in 2018, or you want to diversify and keep them from some sort of a fear, if they have a fear of loss, like let's say they're concerned, everything's looking really good, and they need to diversify to protect themselves, something like that. Like, how can you protect yourself from financial loss in 2018 using options, or whatever it may be that you're going to be talking about?
Okay. My audience is basically members who have heard about options and are scared. They don't understand it. They hear weird terminology. One of the titles that just flashed in my mind as you were speaking was how to make money while you sleep with options.
Okay. But if they're scared of options, they're still going to be scared of that.
Okay.
So you got to really take a walk in their shoes. Right. So if they're scared of something and you just say they can make money while they sleep while using it, that doesn't do anything to get them.
In trade school, we understand it, but not them.
Yeah, exactly. And
okay, so
you got to always remember, it's not about us. It's always
right. About them. That's what I'm trying to go back where I was 5 years ago. Okay. So
if they have a fear,
okay,
you might say, you might address that right in there.
That's what I was. That my original subtitle was understanding the terminology, understanding option terminology, and how to make money.
Okay, but again, you're still not addressing their
them. Right.
You're putting a carrot out there, but you're not avoiding the obstacle that's going to get in their way from reaching out for the carrot.
So if I was to go straight to the heart of the matter, it says how not to become afraid of options, or how to negate the fear of options. Or what I'm doing now is I'm trying to go along with your thinking, and that is interject the word fear, address the problem right off the top, and say how to overcome fear from options.
I would say if you make a statement like that, they might not be willing to admit that they're afraid of options.
Okay.
So it gets a little dicey and a little tricky here.
Yeah.
So you might say something like how to. Let me think about this for a minute. It's going to be something like, and this is like a brainstorming process that I always go through with this kind of stuff. So sometimes what helps is to write down the key points and then kind of mesh the words around with it. But what you're trying to get at is there's let's address shoot, I'm all tied up for the words here for it's you want to get them, you want to come across with there's a huge benefit, and there's also good reason for you to fear trying to achieve the benefit, because there's a lot of pitfalls. It's like whenever you address fear, you always address the pitfalls or the potential outcome. Like, what are they afraid of? Are they afraid of losing all of their money?
Pretty much.
So
Also, to the other fear is to the talking to people at the club. I'm short of breath lately. Talking to people at the club is the unknown. It's their fear is what is, first of all, they don't understanding what is options. That's fear number one. Number two is the terminology. People hear these words of the call and the put and then the strangle and the condor, all the exotic stuff, which is something I will address because I've been down that road and found out that it's not that lucrative. The other fear too is understanding, like, okay, I don't know, John, have you ever seen an options chain? Those where it has all those funny numbers across the top and across the bottom, and it's like the first time you look at it, it's like, oh my God, what is it? That's my fear. My biggest fear when I first get into options is understanding the options chain. And now that I understand it, it's like nothing. But you look at this big graph of numbers, and it's like overwhelming. So there we are.
okay.
So if we have fear of not knowing, fear of terminology, fear of how to do it. One title I came up was How to Make Money with Options. Keeping it simple. So what I did was keeping how to make money in options and keeping it simple.
Okay.
But the thing is, I really don't want, my talk is not going to be, okay, here's a good point. What is my talk? I have a half hour to 45 minutes. And all I want to really do is just give the general overall view of why options can make money. It's not difficult. Okay, we'll get a positive. How options can make money. Number one, I want to address how options work, understanding the mechanics, which is not, once you understand, it's like driving a car, once you know what the stick shift and all that stuff was. And then the other thing was, is understanding only the terminology you need to make money. There's a lot of terminology and options that at the end of the day don't mean gobbledygook. It's one of the fallbacks of high class option classes. They get really into their terminologies, and it's just nothing but showing off IQ. It's not. It doesn't fill the bank.
Okay. So kind of, I've just kind of been jotting some stuff down here.
I see that. Okay.
And what I've got here is something like eliminate the 3 pitfalls of optioning that destroys most traders, so you can safely profit without the risk. So, and you may not be able to say that without risk, but you could, you could noodle that around a little bit, like a.
I just wrote it out. Yeah, you make profit with lower risk.
Yeah.
By keeping it simple.
Yeah, lower, or you might not be able to say eliminate risk, but you might be able to say, lower the risk, but address that, that there's something that they need to know, like these 3 things. As soon as you say that, they're going to automatically want to know what the 3 things are.
And so, I can mold that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to bring your attendance way up when you do that, because it's got that intrigue factor.
Okay, one more time. 3 pitfalls. I'm about to take off your mouth.
Okay. I got here, eliminate the 3 pitfalls of optioning that destroy most traders. And then so you can safely profit without risk, or, something to that, something.
Okay.
To that.
All right. That now it's starting to gel. Now what I do is I let my subconscious mind run with this. And the next couple hours, I probably will come up with something, because I have to turn something in by Monday.
Okay.
I turn in the title, the subtitle, and the little caption to the sheet that I showed you earlier. And,
or another thing you could put in there too is find out the 3 big things that keep people from optioning. Okay. The three biggest fears optioners have that literally can turn into a real life nightmare.
Okay. I just figured that out. Yeah. 3 biggest fears. Yes. 3 biggest fears.
Because that's what you got to address that without calling them out and saying,
Right. You don't know.
yeah, yeah. So understanding what their deal is really, really important if you're trying to get a compelling headline and you're trying to get a click-through ratio. And this is the same thing. You're doing a live event, so you're trying to create a title to get people to show up. But this is the same thing in online marketing. It's the same thing in SEO. It's the same thing. You're trying to get a click-through ratio.
Yeah, I got to fill the room with 15 people minimum.
Yeah. So whether it's pay-per-click or whether it's search engine optimization or real life trying to fill a room with people, it comes down to the same thing. If we don't attract them and give them something that they want, they're not going to show up. They're not going to do what we want them to do.
Okay. I'm going to I have 2 more mentors to go with. I have a marketing mentor, which I'm going to run that. And this is going to be helpful.
Okay.
Thank you. You just triggered something.
Cool.
There's a guy named Ben. He is a wealth manager with some Morgan Stanley or something like that. And he's also an options trader like myself.
Okay.
So I will then start running it by him in the next, it's this afternoon, and then maybe we can come up with something cool. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great.
Okay.
So that's one of the things you want to tie into, in any kind of marketing, there's always got to be a big idea behind it. And the big idea, we can try and brainstorm big ideas all day long, but the best big ideas are going to come out of the market. They're going to come out of the market research of what does the market really want? What are they afraid of? What's holding them back? What's their desired outcome? And that's where we're going to get our best marketing ideas. That's where we're going to get our best headlines, all that stuff.
Okay. All right. Well, I just gave you, and then in the short paragraph down below is where I can elaborate. Understanding terminology, keeping it simple, and addressing the not so much the fear factor, but saying in keeping it simple to understand. Addressing the more positive side of their mind.
Yeah, what you might want to do for the little paragraph below is reinforce the headline and maybe give a little quick blurb about each of the 3 things.
Right. Yes, that's exactly the point.
Yeah, like here's the 3 things you're actually going to learn here.
Got it. Okay, that is tremendously helpful. I think I'm good. I'm looking at the clock. I'm a few minutes away from takeoff to go get the baby. So I thank you very much, and I'll let someone else now speak. Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and mute.
All right. Well, thank you, Gregory, for that. That's that was a great lead-in for a good conversation there.
Right, thank you.
So, regardless of what you guys are doing, like I know, Dan, you're doing legal stuff. Chris is doing finance stuff. It doesn't really matter what it is, what your marketplace is. What matters is your ideal client within that marketplace and how they feel. And this goes across everything. It doesn't matter if you're doing search engine optimization, trying to drive traffic, or if you're creating a marketing funnel, or you're speaking on stages, or you're writing books. It really doesn't matter, but anything that you create should be based on the market's needs and the market's desires. That will make a huge difference in your outcome in your business. If you're creating things that people actually want, life is going to be a lot easier than you creating things and trying to figure out how to make them want them. If they already want them and you're tapping into that, like one of the things, I forget who said this, but it was a marketer, copywriter, and I heard it first from Ray Edwards. He's a copywriting teacher, instructor. And what he always said was, you have to be able to enter the conversation that's already going on in their mind. I know he didn't come up with that. He was just, bringing that forward. I don't know who originally said it, but it is very true. If you figure out what that conversation is going on in your prospect's mind and you can enter into it, you've already got their ear. You're not trying to convince them of something. You're understanding their thought process, you're understanding their beliefs, and you're either trying to change them or you're trying to validate them. And in some cases, both. Sometimes you have to validate, like if they have fear, you have to validate that fear is real and that fear is justified. But if they have this, they don't have to be afraid of that thing, and that will allow them to get to where they want to go. That's the conversation. If you can enter that sort of a conversation with your marketing, and again, whether it be SEO, you can do this with SEO. When people are searching and they're using search engines, whether you're doing pay-per-click marketing or you're doing organic traffic, it doesn't matter. The prospect on the other end, they are searching for something. So that conversation is taking place in their head, and that's the point where you're going to enter into it. So go ahead, Dan.
Hey, John, can you hear me?
Yep.
You kind of made a good point just now where you said, I guess most people are working backwards and think they have a solution and trying to find the customers for it. Whereas people should find a pain point and then try to address that need.
Yes.
So how far niched down or even chunked up would you say in that particular analysis do you have to go? So like maybe for you, you have the ACT program and SEO solutions, but maybe you don't pitch it like that, right? I think you pitch it as marketing solutions.
Yeah, exactly. And even deeper than that, I'm pitching it depending on who the audience is. And that's the most important thing. Like whatever it is that you're selling, I know a lot of you have different things. You might sell the same thing to different people in different ways. And if you've ever seen a really effective salesperson, the way they operate is they strike up a conversation, and part of the conversation is a lot of questions. And they're trying to figure out what's important to you. And once they figure out what's important to you, then they will bring your words back to you so you're comfortable with them. And they have a much higher close ratio than people that read off a script. Because if you're reading off a script, you're basically saying, I don't care about you. All I care about is the information I want to deliver to you. And you're going to take it or leave it. A really good salesperson doesn't care about the script. They care about the parameters of the script, but they are more concerned with rapport. They're more concerned with what is it that you want, why do you want it, and this is how they're going to sell it to you. It's like the conversation, like we'll use a realtor. I use realtors all the time because in their marketing, they're horrible at this. They might be good in person, but they're horrible in their marketing when they come across with marketing because they don't address the person. They're basically, they have two different clients. They've got a buyer and a seller. And whenever they talk about things that are not interesting to the other person, they turn them off. Like obviously a buyer wants a good deal. So when they start talking about good deal and they're talking to a seller, the seller's not interested. They don't want a realtor that's trying to sell their property as a good deal. So you've got to be very, very specific to the market, to who you're talking to. That's really important. So did that kind of answer the question?
Yeah. So I guess I'd like to get your thoughts on something I'm coming out with. So
Okay.
I'm coming out actually with my first info product.
Okay.
And it kind of revolves around the idea of business owners hiring their own kids to work for them.
Okay.
And under the new tax plan that just came out, a parent can pay their kids up to $18,000 a year in tax-free income.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So what I really want to do is kind of exploit this idea and the kit that I'm putting together. But I'm kind of curious as how I do know there's always a need for reducing taxes. I
Yeah.
think a lot of businesses always want to reduce their taxes.
So
And
as far as like for the ACT program, let's use this to make a really, really important point. So the product that you just described, it's a way to eliminate your taxes or reduce your taxes by funneling that money to your children, which obviously they could pay their children the 18,000 and they don't really give it to them, right? They just use
right,
it for whatever they're going to use it for. Um, and that's kind of, you might not want to say it that way, but a lot of them, that might be the conversation that's going on in their head. So understanding that conversation. But the point I wanted to make in relationship to ACT and in relationship to, the market and who you're going to sell this to and what conversation you're going to have with them comes down to the very first step in ACT is segmentation. Because basically that product is something that any parent that has a child that's making money could use, right? So
right.
you could literally sell it to almost any parent that's got a job and is making money and paying taxes. But what does the ACT program teach us as far as segmentation? What's the first thing we do? We try and figure out who's the most profitable market.
Right.
So right there, you're going to be eliminating probably 90% of the buying world. You're going to be just eliminating them. You're going to be focusing on high wealth families, and you're going to be creating a marketing program for them because they're the ones that need it. They're the ones that want it, and they're the ones that can afford it. If you tried to go for the other end of the scale where, people don't have any money because they're getting taxed too much and they're not going to spend money to save the money. They're not in that mindset. That conversation's not going on in their head. Yeah, they could use it, but you'd have a lot of convincing to do to sell it to them, and they don't really have the money to buy it. So it's going to be a very rough go. Does that make sense?
Right.
That's why the very first step in ACT is identifying who the most profitable market is and creating your campaign around that. That's your fastest way to cash. That's going to be the least resistance. You're going right to the people that not only need it, want it, but can afford it. And that's going to be your easiest sale because there's going to be no resistance to the price. When you get price resistance and they literally can't afford it, that's a pretty hard thing to overcome. And even if you do overcome it and you convince them to buy it, even though they can't really afford it, then you've got chargebacks, you got all kinds of negative vibe going on in your business when you do that.
Got it.
So focus there first and really think about, who that ideal client is. And when you come up with headlines and stuff, it's going to be based on that. That's where big ideas come from. That's where, marketing headlines come from. That's where calls to action that are really highly effective come from, is out of joining that conversation. So that's one of the biggest reasons why, ACT starts with analysis. That's the first piece of the program. Everybody across the board, almost everybody I've ever met, it has started in creation. They start creating products, they start creating headlines, they start guessing what what people want, what they need, and it's out of order, and that's why they fail. They struggle, and eventually they give up because they think it didn't work. When if they went to analysis first and they figured out who the most profitable segment was, what the timeline was, what's the desired outcome of the ideal client, and then they put a marketing program together with that, you're educating them on the fact of why you're the perfect solution. And when you do that, you create demand and desire, and sales literally go out the window. Sales come to you. You become an order taker, not a salesperson. Some of us are really good at sales, and we are good salespeople, and that's great. But most people aren't, and most people don't like it, and most people have this negative feeling about, convincing someone to buy something, even if they know they need it. They just, it's got this weird feel to it. But it's a much better feeling when people want what you have and they come your direction and they want to buy it. And then, you're selling it to them, but not from a salesperson standpoint. You're taking orders. There's no better feeling in the world when people line up to purchase your stuff and you're literally just taking orders. The conversation is, how many would you like versus, do you want to buy this? And then they say no. And then you say, well, why not? And you go round and around. Totally different thing. And when you create a marketing funnel and you're trying to put this all on autopilot, when you can do that, you can enter that conversation and you can create that desire and that demand for your product. When it comes time for the sales page to come up or the order page to come up, they're already ready to buy it. They've got the money. The money's not an issue. They want it. They need it. They buy it. So that happens an awful lot in the internet marketing space. You'll see people that are up on stage and they're making pitches, and that's exactly what they're doing. They're creating that demand and desire for their offer. And when it comes time to sell it, they don't have to go and convince you and sell every person in the room. Basically, they just make the offer. They usually make a soft offer, like, I'm going to be in the back. I'll be here for the next 30 minutes for anybody that's interested. And then they flood to the back, and basically they're an order taker. When they're in the back of the room, they're not selling. They're not doing sales presentations. They're just taking orders. It's awesome. And I got to tell you, there's no better feeling in the world than having people come at you that want what you have, and you don't have to sell them. You just take their orders. It's awesome.
I did have experience one time selling in the front of the room, and yes, it is. I told my friends, I've never done illegal drugs in my life, but this must what it feels like.
Yeah, it is. It's absolutely addictive. Once you guys get that feeling, you're going to want it over and over and over. And when you don't get it right, it has the exact opposite effect. I mean, I've actually done this. I have had the wrong conversation or I've had the right conversation to the wrong room. And it really sucks when you make an offer and nobody takes you up on it. I mean,
yeah.
It makes you feel absolutely horrible. And I've done that more than a couple of times, and it's really not very pleasant. But when you get it right, it'll blow your mind, and you'll want that over and over and over. I'll never forget the first time I sold to a very large audience and I got it right. It was at Glazier Kennedy, and I took $140,000 worth of orders at the back of the room.
Wow.
I had 70 minutes on stage and 140 grand walked out the back door with it. It was incredible. And, it was the right room. It was the right conversation. I had done the research. I knew why they were there. I knew what they wanted. I knew what they were scared of. and I addressed it all, and it worked absolutely flawlessly. So that's what you want to do, and you can't do that unless you really understand who you're talking to.
Right, right.
One of the things that I knew about the audience was I knew a lot of them were in the same industry, and like there was a lot of professionals there, like professional doctors and attorneys and, you know, chiropractors and dentists. And there was a lot of those type of groups. And one of the things that I said in my presentation was one of the benefits to working with me, I was selling an SEO package. So I said, one of the benefits, after I got them totally convinced that they had to have it and they needed it and they would want it, and they would want me on their team just because of the way I put the presentation together, then I came out and I said, and another benefit of having me do this work for you is you will never have to worry about your competitor coming to me behind your back, because I don't accept competitors. You know, if I take on an attorney in a particular city or a chiropractor or a dentist in a particular city, they have me and I won't work with any other one there. And when I said that, I could literally see people in the audience looking around the room to see who else was a dentist in their city and who was going to get it first. So it was pretty cool to create that kind of a frenzy. And
Right.
again, that comes from understanding your audience. So, you know, regardless of whether you're speaking from stage or you're speaking to an audience online, or you're doing a webinar, or you're doing a sales video, it doesn't matter. It's all the same thing. It goes back to that really good salesperson asking questions to figure out what's important to the client, what's important to the prospect.
Right.
When you do that, you really have it made. It makes things a lot easier. You know what copy to write. You're basically you're writing to them as though you would just talk to them. You know, a lot of people are scared of copywriting and they think they're not a good copywriter, and that's not true. You know, the only thing is you might not know what to write because you haven't done the research. You don't know what the conversation is. Once you understand what they're feeling, what that conversation is going on in their head, it's very easy to write copy for that, because you're really just having a conversation. Just pretend like they're sitting next to you at, you know, at an event or at a bar or something, and they ask you a question, and how would you answer it?
Okay. Kind of a related question, and I think you mentioned this one time in either Monday nights or this phone call, and it was how Tim Ferriss came up with the name, the 4-Hour Work Week.
Yeah.
And I believe he said he basically ran an ad campaign on a couple of different titles, and 4-Hour Work Week, if I remember. But it was basically that got the best response, and that's how he came up with his own book.
Yeah, that's a perfect example. Basically, what Tim Ferriss was selling was he was writing a book on how to do outsourcing. And what he found he actually put several different book titles together and they didn't sell. And basically what he found out was nobody wanted the outsourcing. Like with me, I found this very early on, and nobody wants SEO. Nobody buys SEO because they want SEO. They want the outcome of it. And that's exactly what Tim Ferriss did with that book. He took a step back. He said, what does my market really want? They want to not work. You know, they want life to be easy. They want a 4-hour work week. And that's where it came from. And that's a perfect example of big ideas always come out of the market. You never come up with them. You know, he couldn't come up with that. That came out of what he found that was true across the board for the whole market. And once he got that right, the book didn't change. There was nothing about the book that changed. It was just the title. And that's a perfect example of when you get the marketing right. People desire what you have. They literally lined up to buy that book just off the title because he hit it so right on the head. So thanks for bringing that up, because that's a perfect example of this, of big ideas and how you can get them wrong when they don't come from the right place. But
all right, thank you very much.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. All right, anybody else got anything you're working on or having trouble with or need help, want to share? We are open to anything.
John, can you hear me?
Yeah, Sharon, go ahead.
This is my first time signing on.
Awesome. Well, welcome aboard.
I've had a tough year, but so I am a certified grief recovery specialist.
Oh, okay.
So I work with anyone that is suffering a loss of any kind.
Okay.
Okay, so I have tried narrowing down to my perfect avatar, my perfect client, but literally everyone is going to suffer a loss, right?
Sure.
So, and I try to go with the clients that I like working with the best, which is sort of like the 40, 50-year-old woman.
Okay.
Educated, college educated, sharp, either business owner or out in the field, whatever. And the reason I like that is because they just write the check. They don't even question it. They just pay it. They just are right there. So I guess my question to you is, do you think I need to narrow down further than that? And then I've been writing this down. Is what would my client want? They basically want to not be in pain. They want to, obviously they want to have their loved one back, but they want to not have the pain from the loss.
Yeah. Yeah. They want to know how to deal, really.
Exactly. So as far as getting the question answered, like the farthest that I can narrow it down right now, most people will go to the internet and they will search grief support. Okay. Because they think they're supposed to be in a grief support. Okay. And I actually teach an 8-week educational program that helps them it's called grief recovery. So it helps them complete their relationship with their loved one, everything that they need to know about that loved one, and they finish that relationship and say goodbye to them. And I kind of ease them into that.
Okay.
So I guess my question is, like, do I go to the next level? Do I go to the next level? Or do I just narrow in that?
Well, it sounds like you've already identified your ideal market.
Yeah.
And I'm really in tune with that right now because my wife lost her mother right before Christmas. So she is your ideal client. She's
right.
Good. And a few days after, and she had seen me lose both of my parents in the last couple of years too.
Right.
And I dealt with it probably a lot different than most people because I've got, a fair amount of NLP training.
Right.
And understanding, how to deal with things like that.
Right.
And she lost her father probably 15 years ago, and it was a 5-year process.
Yeah.
For her to get through that.
Right.
And she saw me lose my father, and it was like, a 1-day process.
Right.
She saw me lose my mother, and it was the same thing. And not to say that I wasn't sad and all that, but
of
just
course.
The way I went through it and processed it, handled it. And she came out here in my office, and she sat down and she said, I watched you do that. And she says, how do you deal with that? How,
right.
And I wasn't really sure how to say, how I did that, but
right.
But she's, just from my example, she's handling this one way better.
Right.
But it's still hard,
Yeah, exactly. Oh no, it's always hard. It definitely is hard. I lost a nephew. He was 10 years old. He drowned. 12 years ago.
Yeah.
And I stumbled upon this program, the Grief Recovery Institute. And after I took the program, I was like, I have to get this word out.
Yeah.
And I trained. And for the last 4 years, I've been doing it full time. But no one knows that I'm here. Do you know what I mean? Like, I get referrals. I definitely get referrals. But as far as getting it out to the bigger scale, I just finished my book. I'm with Sue Brook.
Okay.
I'm working with Sue and that group.
Sure.
So my book is just finished. I'm doing some speaking engagements. I signed on to your program last year, and my very best friend got sick, and I've been with her, and she passed away from cancer. So I'm just coming back to work and just really trying to launch 2018 in a powerful way.
Just trying to get back into it. That's
yeah,
awesome.
Exactly. Yeah. So I absolutely love what I do, but no one knows I'm here.
Yeah, and that's another thing. If you've been through the training so far, there's one thing that I talk about is the pyramid of awareness.
Right.
And the biggest opportunity is in the unaware section of the pyramid. That's the bottom of the pyramid, is the unaware.
Right.
So it's like, how do you get to the unaware? How do you reach that audience?
Right.
And one of the things is figuring out where they are. Like those 40 to 50-year-old women, where do they hang out?
Right.
One place is they might be in Facebook. You know, I know a lot of 40 to 50-year-old women, they're in Facebook. That's where they go. That's where they express themselves. That's,
right.
You know, so advertising to them. I know you're not connected to them, so because they don't know you, but you could advertise to them via a Facebook audience by identifying them. And,
right.
You know, that's a good way to go. Sometimes they've joined groups in Facebook, like maybe they've joined, you know, Lost My Mother group, or I don't know what the groups are, but I just.
Yeah, there's one option B right now, and it's just like, oh my gosh, it's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, and some of those groups have, you know, tens and if not hundreds of thousands of members that are assigned to it, and you can advertise to those groups. Not just when they're in the group, but anytime they're on Facebook in general. And then what you can do is you can retarget them. Once they see your ad and they click on it, and you retarget them, and now you're following them around all the other places around the internet that they go. And one of the things you can do with analysis of that information is you might find out that, hey, a very large percentage of my audience hangs out on, you know, whatever website, you know, maybe it's, you know, some news site or some entertainment site or a religious site, whatever it is. Then you can contact that website owner and you can say, hey, would you put my display ad on your site? And you can go direct. You can cut out all the middlemen. Okay. So that's a really good way to, you know, to reach that audience and get out to the unaware and stay in their focus until they do become aware and they do digest your information. And that's where you get your opportunity to show them how you're the perfect solution for their problem.
Exactly.
Create that demand and desire so you become an order taker and
exactly.
not a salesperson. Exactly,
for sure. Yeah, I'm sorry to ask such a simple question from the beginning, but this is my first time signing on, so
sure.
I'm you know, really excited to get back to work. I have been off, like I said, so.
Okay.
Yeah, and it is narrowing it down, you know.
Yeah, one thing I want everyone to know is there are no wrong questions. There's no simple questions. Hey, whatever you guys are stuck on, that's why we're here.
Okay.
So don't ever think that you got a bad question, because the only bad question is the one you don't ask.
Exactly. Exactly. But that was really great because there is a large group on Facebook and they're just constantly posting how bad they feel, and they're just telling their stories over and over again.
Yeah. So what you want to do, you want to participate in that, or at least take it in, so you understand what that conversation is that's going on in their head.
Exactly. Oh, that's really great. And then can someone narrow, and this is another simple question, could you narrow in and get the people that are just following that group? Could you advertise to the people that are without going into that group?
Absolutely.
Okay, that's what I need to figure out.
Yeah, because what you do is you create a custom audience inside Facebook that only consists of people that belong to that group, and then you can advertise to that custom audience.
Awesome.
Yeah, you don't have to belong to the group to do that.
Oh, awesome. Okay, that's cool.
Yeah, because there's some groups that are closed and you can't even get into them.
Yeah.
You can still advertise to their members.
Oh my gosh, all the things you have to know now. I really miss the yellow pages.
Yeah, those were the days, huh?
I say that all the time. It was so simple. You just put in a little ad and people looked you up and they called you.
Yeah, it's funny how many people don't even remember that.
I think I just shared my age.
Yeah. When I started into SEO, that was one of the things I told people is I said, here's how to prospect. I said, pick up the yellow pages. If you're an SEO specialist and you want to get SEO clients, I said, pick up the yellow pages and look for the guys that are running the full page display ads. Those are the ones that are advertising. Those are the ones that have money. Those are the ones that will spend it on a new channel. Right,
exactly.
Yeah, that's.
I don't even think we get a yellow pages anymore.
I haven't seen one in who knows how long.
I remember when I used to go through them to try and market and find people, but it was like, yeah, that was were the days, let me tell you.
I used to, back in the old days, I used to collect yellow pages when I had a photography business.
Yeah.
Because I would use it as chair risers. So I could put people at the right level. It's, oh, you need 3 phone books. You need 2. You need 4.
Yeah, see, they had multiple uses, those yellow pages.
Absolutely. Doorstops. They made a great doorstop.
Now you have to know how to go on Facebook and target a group and go and then start following them. I mean, it's just, it's endless. It just goes on and on and on.
Yeah, but it's so much more versatile, though. If you think about it, the opportunities that we have today are absolutely incredible.
Right.
It's really powerful, but you got to get the message right.
Yes.
If you don't have the message right, it doesn't matter how hard you work or how much money you spend, you just wind up spinning your wheels. So
right.
That's why I created this, this whole community was, whether you're doing SEO or whether you're doing ads or marketing, just so you don't spin your wheels. So you do it in a way that works.
Exactly. Man. Okay. Well, thank you. I really appreciate that.
Oh, absolutely. And definitely, hop on these. I
am. I definitely am. I'm back. So yeah, I'm definitely am.
All right. Awesome. Okay. Anything else? Anybody got anything else before we wrap up here today? I'm going to create a YouTube channel to actually upload these videos. So if you want to go back and review anything that was said, or, if you miss a call, you'd always be able to go in and look at the archive too. So that's what we got going. An upgrade for you guys in 2018. So. All right, well, if that's it, we will go ahead and wrap up. Last call. Anybody want to pop out before we wrap it up?
Hey, I want to, what is this, like a cake? I want to pop out.
Pop out. Pop on out here for
us. Hey, I just want to say I was listening to 2 things. I saw a great documentary on Steve Jobs on Amazon Prime, and then I was listening to something today on a podcast I really like called Story Brand. Their motto is, if you confuse, you lose. And the whole point is that you just have to have a clear message to the people you want to work with. Anyway, he was interviewing a guy on the podcast, and they talked about the difficulty once people get an idea of who they are in their head. It is darn near impossible to change their perspective. And unless they work at it, unless they put in other thoughts. And so that was that part. And then the thing with Steve Jobs says, look, the world is made up of human beings, no smarter than you. Like, his whole thing was like, everything that exists exists based on the human mind. And you're a human being. And if you're a smart human being, you can probably figure things out. Like automobiles, they're constantly making automobiles easier and easier. And just the way traffic flows, it's real. In other words, Steve Jobs is saying it's real simple. If you can just think differently than the grid-like layout of most human thought, you can be successful. And so getting back to the StoryBrand podcast, that once I get an idea in my head of who I am and what my limitations are, it's hard to break it. So what I'm trying to say is that what you're talking about, John, it's not rocket science.
That's right.
Telling to people, there's no, I'm a human being. I'm a smart human being. I can figure it out. I just need to do it differently. And differently means being concise and knowing who my market is. That is so radically different from the way everyone does it. This ought to be pretty easy. So I'm also just saying out loud on the first conversation this year, I'm just committing to changing my thoughts about who I am. It's like I'm no longer saying, oh, I'm not good at math. And so I'm not going to say, oh, I'm no good at marketing anymore. Yeah. Because I just put that belief in my head. And what I'm changing that to is that there are techniques and ways of marketing effectively. And I am smart enough to learn what those are. So I'm just going to shift my mind frame. Doesn't matter how many things I haven't sold or didn't sell or why they didn't sell. I'm just going to shift it to John is talking about things that work. I'm a smart human being. I'm going to learn this, and I'm going to be really, really good at it in less than a year's time. So that's my pledge. No longer, I'm no good at marketing. That's got to go.
Awesome. Yeah, you got to be careful with those labels you put on yourself because you'll start to believe it.
Yeah. Or I don't know what the first steps are, when every week you talk about what the first steps are.
Yeah.
But if I believe I don't know what they are, then they're just going to go right over my head. So.
Well, awesome. I am glad that you're on track. I'm looking forward to working with all you guys in 2018 and getting some of these funnels up and in play and making money. So, all right, guys. Well, great call here for our first call of the new year. I look forward to many more and getting you guys up and running. So be back on next week, same time, and this is how we'll do it. So have a great week, and we'll talk to you soon.